Don't you think they should just try to improve, enact some new laws to try and fix it instead of closing it down?
How can you improve on a room full of people sleeping? Give them each a private room. Why not give them a proper place to live in the first place?
Yeah.
You know? Like, it'd be a whole lot cheaper. These shelters, you know what? These shelters charge almost as much per person as to live in a first-class hotel downtown.
Wow.
To put them in shit like that.
And that makes no sense.
Because the fat cats are making a killing out of homelessness.
What a backward system, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They're making themselves rich out of homelessness. It's like $300 and some a night is what the city pays per bed to let somebody sleep overnight, have a breakfast, and then they throw them out. You don't even get to stay there. You're told when you can go to bed. You're told when you have to get up. You're fed a meal and thrown out. Doesn't care if it's 30 below out there. They throw you out. You're on the street anyhow.
What's the worst experience you have from staying in a shelter?
I'm a powerful person, so people don't screw with me. You know? But I've seen bullying going on. I've seen people try to bully me, but I don't back down.
Yeah.
So, but I only stayed in shelters a few times, right at the very first of my homelessness, until I realized that, like, I tried a few different shelters until I realized that they're all the same. The best of the shelters is still not something that I can lower myself to live in. I'd rather sleep on the sidewalk. It took less than 2 years to go from being a millionaire to being homeless.
And at what point did you start panhandling?
Right away.
Right away.
Right away. You gotta understand. I was an addict with a habit that cost a couple $100 a day. Mm-hmm. So, and here, don't get me wrong. A lot of people are addicts out there. Not all of them were addicts before they became homeless. They became addicts because of being homeless. Because once you're homeless, the only comfort that's left to you is drugs.
Yeah.
So, like, I know lots and lots of people who never touched drugs until they lost everything, lost their job, and eventually lost their home because of it. Because you can't, once the unemployment insurance runs out, you can't live on welfare, so they become homeless. Mm-hmm. Every time. And once they got out there on the street, there's so much misery that you got to get high to escape it.
Yeah.
You know? So you don't blame them for being addicts. The system placed them on the street and created them, a lot of them. Not all of them by any means. More people were addicts before they got out there, but the same problem was the cause of it. I didn't become an addict because I was a happy person. I became an addict because I was totally dissatisfied with the whole way the system was working. And I didn't know, I hadn't thought it through enough to realize that was what the problem was, but that was the problem as I look back on it.
Yeah.
The problem that we have with addiction is primarily a problem of disaffection with the system. We've got a system that's totally unfair, that's creating slavery and human nature. There's one thing about human nature: we crave freedom, and as long as the government was wise enough to give us the illusion of freedom, a few bucks in their pocket and the car to drive and all that crap, everything was good. But they've taken that away. They cut it down to the point where the minimum wage, a person working for minimum wage cannot maintain his home. He can't feed his kids.
Yeah, not if you have kids in a family.
No. Okay, so what's he supposed to do? Kill his kids because he lost his job? You know? Come on. And the reason he lost his job is because we exported all our good jobs. Now there's nothing left but working for McDonald's. Mm-hmm. You know, we go from you got a guy that's spent 20 years working at General Motors or one of the big manufacturing places making union wages, and all of a sudden he's laid off, the plant's closed down,
It's ridiculous
and
what's happening.
he's working for minimum wage with a wife and kids and the whole 9 yards in a house that he can't keep, and he loses everything, including his family. He loses everything.
I don't know what all these
No
thousands
wonder he
of people
turns
are
to
gonna
drugs.
do. Yeah.
No wonder he turns to drugs.
So many thousands of people being laid off at these
I don't
companies.
keep track of numbers. I see it all the time. Everywhere you turn, people are losing like industrial jobs and being forced into menial labor, menial work.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know what they're gonna do. Like.
And then there aren't even enough of those menial jobs around.
Yeah.
So they blame people for being without a job when they exported the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Because they got cheaper slaves overseas. It's still economic slavery. Well, let's do China a favor and export all our jobs there. Where a guy there will work for 50 cents a day, to do the same job as a guy in Canada gets $20 an hour for.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing the guy in China a big favor by giving him 50 cents a day.
Mm-hmm.
And destroying a family in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I went straight to a shelter from my last place that I lived in when I got evicted. Tried a couple of nights in one, tried a couple of nights in another, and then said, no, I just went out and got a sleeping bag and.
Remember what year that was that you went from welfare and
No.
the first night you went to
I
shelter?
can't give you years. It's just impossible for me to. You got to understand. I was an addict.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I've never been good with dates.
Mm-hmm.
In my whole life, I've never been good with dates. But I was an addict. It was 2002 when I happened to read a newspaper and see the date. I thought it was 1999. I have no concept of dates.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's true though. You know? So like to ask me when something happened, I just say it happened. That's
Yeah.
all I can tell you.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Do you remember like how many years you were in welfare before you got to a shelter?
It's hard to say because I'll tell you,
Was it months or years?
it was years.
It was years.
It was years.
Okay.
But like it was all just a big misery, and you know you shut it out of your head.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't dredge it up to give you a chronology. I really can't do that.
Like you know about the anti-panhandling laws and stuff
Yeah.
like that they enforced
Exactly.
over Ontario and Vancouver, Toronto, whatever. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's legitimate, or do you think it's unconstitutional? Are they taking away human rights?
Well,
What's your opinions on that?
basically, as I said earlier, what they've done is they've made it against the law to be poor.
Mm-hmm.
They've put people in a position where they gave their job to some guy in China,
Mm-hmm.
didn't allow him to have to get a decent minimum wage job
Mm-hmm.
that could support his family. So eventually he loses his family because the first thing that happens when you can't afford to pay the rent and put food on the table is the wife and kids take off.
Yeah.
So now the guy's on welfare. Well, he can't even pay rent to get a stinking room. Like to get a room with rats and bed bugs and no hot water and no cooking facilities is $450 a month.
Mm-hmm.
They give him about $325 a month for rent.
I know.
You know, so he can't even rent a room. Not even forget about a livable room. He can't even rent a slum. So he's out there on the street. I forgot where I was going with this.
Panhandling. What do you
Yeah.
think about
So now-
panhandling laws?
He's on the street, so they give him a couple $100 a month to live on the street. That is the homeless welfare, basically, is about $200 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Now he doesn't have a kitchen. He's on the street, so he can't go to the food bank and get food and cook it. $200 is at the cheapest restaurants a few days.
Mhm.
A few days, less than a week, and it's gone.